to News at 5 with Jim Jensen, Carol Martin, Michelle Marsh, and Dr. Frank Field with the weather.
Good afternoon. Michelle Marsh is off today on vacation. It was a scandal which shocked the city of New York, a scandal which continues to unfold. Now Mayor Koch says he is stepping in an effort to stop more sexual abuse of young children. Today at City Hall, the mayor announced he will send out 10,000 letters to child care workers, urging them all to report any incidents at all of child abuse. The mayor, referring to 39 cases of child abuse at the 5 centers in the Bronx, said, "It is simply incredible to believe that these situations will be limited to the Bronx." And the mayor stressed the overall priority is the need to protect the children. In the Bronx alone, 4 daycare center workers now stand charged with sexually abusing young children.
And in Newark, parents are also afraid for their children in a daycare center, but their fear is not over the care at the center, but rather over others cared for at the same facility. There are plans in Newark to locate a methadone clinic right next door to a children's daycare clinic. New Jersey correspondent Roseanne Coletti reports.
Some people fear the youngsters in this church-run, government-supported daycare center in Newark, New Jersey may soon have heroin addicts as neighbors. The New Hope Baptist Church, which operates the center and owns the old factory in which it's located, wants to rent empty space in the same building to a methadone clinic. That has the community alarmed.
Even though my kids don't go there, I'm concerned about those kids in the projects over there where we live at. Because that would mean snatching pocketbooks, robbing people and stuff like that.
They come down further where we live too. So I think it's very bad, and here's a church I don't think it's right.
For the children, I am worried about it. We go outside and play. We go out there in the backyard and play and everything like that. And they're going to be exposed to it. And I won't want them to be exposed to it, because if my child was here, I wouldn't want them to be exposed to it. No.
The head of the privately run methadone clinic, which has a state contract, refused to say how they will assure the safety of the daycare children once the methadone clinic moves in.
You know, we've worked on a plan together with the church, and I assure you that we have a comprehensive plan to take care of it.
But you don't want to talk about it right now.
That's correct.
There are plenty of misgivings about the arrangement from church members themselves. Diothea Stafford belongs to the church and has managed the daycare center for the last 5 years.
Well, my concern mostly is the fact that it will not be where they could hang out and delete us from the freedom that we've had in the past. That the children will be safe and secure, that we can go in and out of here without any fear of it.
Late this afternoon, we succeeded in contacting the pastor of the church, the Reverend Charles Thomas. He told us, quote, "Security will be provided at the center 16 hours a day. I plan to hire off-duty Newark police officers." However, a spokesman for the Newark Police Department says, quote, "We have never been contacted by the Reverend Thomas. We're inclined not to permit officers to work there off-duty. It's not healthy." The head of the New Jersey Division of Youth and Family Services, Tom Blattner, has not yet taken a position on the matter, yet he does indicate he may oppose the location of that methadone clinic so close to this daycare center. A community meeting is scheduled for later in the week. I'm Roseanne Coletti, Channel 2 News, Newark.
Some 1,300 clerical workers of the Long Island Lighting Company are voting on a new pay contract at this very hour. If they accept, the 5-week-old walkout against the company will end. Yesterday, linemen and mechanics voted to accept the settlement, which was reached last week. The proposed contract calls for an 18-month wage freeze for current employees and a 5% pay cut for new employees. In the meantime, talks in the month-old walkout against 45 area hospitals and nursing homes goes on. Negotiators are at the bargaining table now, trying to search for a compromise, which union officials are now saying is within reach. No one is predicting exactly when this deadlock will be broken, however. The union officials said today an agreement could come in the next few hours, or not that, the next few days. Health workers have been demanding a 20% pay increase over 2 years. The hospitals have offered 8%.
An Irvington, New Jersey police officer who lost his life in the line of duty was given an inspector's funeral today. 41-year-old Anthony Garaffa was shot last Thursday when he stopped to question a suspicious person near an apartment building. Today, hundreds of lawmen from all over the East Coast gathered for a motorcade in his honor. Mass was held at the officer's parish at St. Joseph's Church in Maplewood. Anthony Garaffa was a 16-year veteran of the Irvington force. He is survived now by his wife, Patricia, and their 2-year-old daughter, Nicole. His alleged killer, Theodore Rose, is in custody and may well face the death penalty if convicted.
British authorities are preparing for another confrontation with a New York IRA supporter. When Martin Galvin defied a government ban on coming into Northern Ireland yesterday, the rally at which he appeared ended in violence and death. And Galvin is vowing to continue to defy that order. CBS News correspondent Steve Croft reports.
2,000 people, including a delegation from America, were marching to commemorate the first jailings of IRA members without trial 13 years ago. They were closely watched by British soldiers in Ulster Police. 10 days ago, Britain had banned Martin Galvin, an American fundraiser for the IRA, from entering Northern Ireland and taking part in the rally.
Martin Galvin!
When Galvin showed up anyway, smuggled into the country through Londonderry, the trouble started. As soon as he appeared on the speaker's platform, police began their charge. Galvin disappeared into the crowd. Wielding clubs and firing plastic bullets, police tore through the protesters. In all, 20 people were injured, and one man was killed, hit by a plastic bullet near the heart. Galvin escaped and is still at large. Steve Croft, CBS News, London.
And late today, Mayor Koch said he would ask the City Department of Investigations to look into Martin Galvin's activities in Northern Ireland. Koch said he wanted to be certain that Galvin's conduct does not conflict with his duties as an attorney for the Department of Sanitation.
Well, now a Russian ship has struck one of the mines planted in the Red Sea. The ship, called the Bastion, a Soviet fishing vessel, struck the mine in Egypt's Gulf of Suez 1 week ago, but the incident was only reported today. That now makes 17 ships damaged recently by these explosions. The Soviets will not say how badly their ship was damaged, but it did not stop them today from criticizing U.S. efforts to help clear those mines. This morning, the United States sent 3 more mine-sweeping helicopters at the request of Saudi Arabia. These are in addition to the 4 helicopters already sent at Egypt's request.
And still to come on Channel 2 News at 5, Dr. Frank Field joins us with his first forecast for Channel 2 News at 5. And Betsy Ashton with some offbeat travel tips, how you can save some money cruising on something less than a luxury liner. What do your own emotions at a class reunion say about you? Dr. Judy Kuriansky looks at how to cope with what can be a traumatic experience. And ballet great Rudolph Nureyev joins our James Brady later on. Stay with us. Elizabeth Taylor paid a pre-dawn visit to the grave of her former husband, Richard Burton. She tried twice to do that yesterday, but left both times because of the horde of photographers. Finally today, shielded by umbrellas carried by her aides, we're told that a sobbing Miss Taylor spent 15 minutes at Burton's graveside.
John Zaccaro, vice presidential candidate Geraldine Ferraro's husband, told CBS News today that he will make whatever financial disclosures are required. However, Zaccaro did not specify whether that included tax returns. Yesterday, Ferraro said she would not make her husband's finances public along with her own, saying that, in fact, it would hurt his real estate business. In other campaign news today, Walter Mondale's running mate told district attorneys in San Diego that the Reagan administration's tough talk on crime has not been matched by action. Former Nassau County Republican leader Joseph Margiotta may now have more time to expand his political consulting business. Margiotta no longer has to spend his nights in jail. He walked out a free man from an East Meadow prison this morning. He was on a work release program, part of a 2-year sentence for mail fraud and extortion. Margiotta is now on probation. Tomorrow night, he will be the guest of honor at a big party. The guest list includes Richard Nixon, former Governor Malcolm Wilson, and CIA Director William Casey.
Oregon Senator Mark Hatfield admits today that he made, and I quote, an error in judgment about whether a payment from a Greek businessman to his wife looked like an effort to influence him. At a news conference today, Antoinette Hatfield insisted a $55,000 fee she received was for helping Basil Tsakos and his wife find and furnish an apartment in Washington. But the Senate Ethics Committee is looking into whether the money was really for the senator's support of his oil pipeline that Tsakos is backing. And Mrs. Hatfield says she has donated the money to a hospital for crippled children to avoid any appearance at all of a conflict of interest. Well, it truly was a breakfast of champions today as President Reagan honored our 174 Olympic medal winners at a special Los Angeles breakfast this morning.
You're heroes, every one of you, living proof of what happens when America sets its sights high and says, let's create a little excellence. And you gave us moments that we'll never forget.
All the medal winners and their coaches have now set out on a 5-city tour, which will bring them to New York City for a ticker tape parade on Wednesday.
Gives us great pleasure right now to welcome the new kid on the block here at Channel 2 News. Dr. Frank Field is going to be our meteorologist at 5, 6, and 11 every day now. And welcome, Dr. Field.
Want to feel some
nice
cold hands?
No, I can't believe you're nervous.
Butterflies. I am.
Are you?
I
How
am.
does it feel? Same light, same cameras?
No. We had a high today of 83 degrees. That happens to be the current reading. We're lucky because over the midsection of the nation, temperatures have topped 90 and 100 degrees. Here in Midtown, though, our thermometer is on the mild side, comparatively speaking. It is 83 degrees, and the humidity, that's really the story, 67%. Barometer is beginning to slide off. Our winds are out of the east. They are 8 miles an hour, and easterly winds, that's the story. A radar shows just some scattered showers and thunderstorms off to the west. They are not drifting our way, so if you're heading out on the town tonight, they're moving northward and will simply bypass the metropolitan area. Our moist flow continues, and that means, again, tonight clouds will simply move in onshore, those low clouds that have developed over the past 24 hours, and then during the day they will dissipate and bring us warm sunshine. So our forecast for tonight, if you're going out this evening, let's call it sticky, warm, and humid under mostly cloudy skies. Those clouds will cloud up quickly overnight, fog will develop along the coast, and temperatures will be in the rather uncomfortable mid-70s. I'll have more details on improving weather coming up later on. Carolyn,
Good to hear that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Smooth as silk.
Frank, it's an honor and pleasure indeed to have you amongst us. Look forward to many great years.
25 at least.
Now let's change the weather.
You're picking on me already.
Just ahead, the latest from the courtroom of the John DeLorean trial. Dave Monsees in why Nassau County is offering some workers a big incentive to retire early.
There was an unexpected break today in jury deliberations in the cocaine trafficking trial of former automaker John DeLorean. The U.S. courthouse in Los Angeles had to be evacuated this morning after a man called and threatened to blow up the building. Judge Robert Takasugi said the caller demanded the legalization of marijuana, but did not direct his threat at the DeLorean trial. The 12-member jury was taken to lunch while police searched the building. It's not clear at this point whether deliberations will resume later today or tomorrow in Los Angeles.
Nassau County is making offers to its employees which many of them cannot refuse. The county wants veteran employees to retire early in exchange for expanded benefits. Our Long Island correspondent Dave Monsees reports.
It is a one-time only offer. Any Nassau County employee, 55 or older, can retire early between September 15th and November 15th with as much as 3 years extra seniority provided toward his or her pension. Someone with 17 years service can collect a pension as if 20 years had been spent on the job. New York State did it last year, and retirements tripled.
We feel that it's going to give opportunities to new young people to come in, give a chance of a person who is going to think about retirement or close to it. It's going to give him a little extra incentive for doing that. He'll pick up about 6% more on his retirement when he does go.
Over the long haul, the county estimates it will save some $5 million with early retirement as older senior-level top pay scale employees are replaced by younger workers at a lower pay grade. And already fully a third of Nassau County's workforce is over 55 years old, 4,500 out of a workforce of 14,000. Already some 200 employees have applied for early retirement in less than a week.
I liked my job, and I basically like working in the county. It's almost been making it too attractive for me to continue to work.
The enticement is hard to resist, while others wrestle with giving up their careers before they planned.
It's very difficult for me. I enjoy my work. I like the people I'm working with. I've been in the controller's office for 17 years, and to me, it's been a great place to work.
Might this man take early retirement? He's the one taking applications in the controller's office from prospective retirees.
I am 72 years of age, and I plan to retire as long as I am an effective employee. I can provide necessary services to the county and to the people.
The County Workers Union sees early retirement as a blessing, making room for new workers. Now, all this is happening before the Nassau Board of Supervisors has voted on whether or not to adopt early retirement. But if it does, it could open up a whole new scope to early retirement, the ability of any municipality, of any school district, of any village to consider early retirement for itself. Dave Monsees, Channel 2 News in Mineola.
And coming up next, a warning about some of those new cordless telephones. And Betsy Ashton tells you how to take a slow boat to almost anywhere on vacation.
A motorist waited atop one of San Francisco's steepest hills for a cable car yesterday. Then he gunned his engine and slammed into the cable car at 60 miles an hour. The man was killed instantly. The cable car was hurled backwards for 2 blocks before it finally came to a stop. Screaming passengers were sent sprawling. 30 people were hurt, most of them tourists. Police in San Francisco say the driver rammed the cable car head-on, and they are calling it a suicide.
A doctor in St. Louis is suing the maker of a cordless telephone for $1.25 million. He says the device cost him most of the hearing in his left ear. Dr. Will Gearhart filed a federal lawsuit, so the results could help set a precedent, in fact. In Washington, the FDA says it has received 120 complaints from people who say that cordless phones have left them somewhat deaf. Uniden, the particular company which is being sued, says the problem is incorrect use of their phones. Some people forget to flip the switch that keeps the phone from ringing directly into the ear.
Among many things for which summertime is, vacation time is one of them. Some people go to the shore, and some go to the mountains, and some go to the flats. But if you want to see the world, consumer editor Betsy Ashton has a boat trip that's a lot less expensive than the standard cruise.
This is not the Pacific Princess. It does not have a swimming pool, shuffleboard deck, or a disco. But for 6 passengers, this freighter will be a kind of love boat. It will offer them round-trip passage from Brooklyn to several ports in Europe and the Middle East, plus the serenity of at least 30 days at sea. Washington Post reporter Tom Zito brought 2 years' worth of notes and 2 computers on board. He's going to finish a book on this voyage.
It's the only way I know in 1984 to really get away from telephones. It's just a good way to get some writing done. There aren't that many distractions on a freighter.
Each passenger gets a stateroom with a view, a private bath, and a refrigerator that will be stocked by the steward with nighttime snacks. They eat meals at a special passenger's table in the officer's dining room. This is no Lutece, but the food is simple and good. Passengers say they get special treatment on freighters because they are just 1 or 2 among 6 passengers. They say freighters have other advantages over cruise ships in the ports.
When you go in on a cruise ship with several hundred people or 1,000 people pouring off, all the cabs, all the souvenir shops, all the restaurants seem to up their prices to make the most of the crowd. When you get off on a freighter, you just melt into the people who happen to be around the dock or the town. They don't even notice you, and so you don't have that inflation to contend with.
What's all this going to cost you? $3,500 a person. But that breaks down to roughly $65 a day for the transportation to Europe, the Middle East, and back, hotels, and all meals included. It's a good deal when you figure it that way. Freighter travel is so popular that to get on board, you have to get your name on a long waiting list.
You must anticipate a year and a half.
How many people are waiting ahead of you?
Well, there are a number of people that are going to be waiting ahead of you, but depending on their flexibility, can they move at the last minute? If we get a cancellation, will they be readily available? If you're more flexible and more readily available, the better your chances are going to be.
There are about 60 passenger-carrying freighters like the Lash Italia that operate out of U.S. ports. Prices vary from $50 to $100 a day. Voyages run from 3 to 8 weeks, depending on whether the cargo is going to Europe, South America, or the Orient. Freighter travel is not for everybody. Passengers tend to be well-educated people with flexible schedules. Retired folks, students, writers, artists. People with hobbies to fill the idle hours. If this appeals to you, contact the Travel Tips Cruise and Freighter Association during weekdays at 212-939-2400. Betsy Ashton, Channel 2 News.
Potentially faulty seatbelt design prompted Ford Motors to announce 2 recalls today involving more than 400,000 Escort, Lynx, Tempo, and Topaz models. In the larger recall, Ford will replace belts in 4-door sedans and station wagons. In another recall, somewhat smaller, it will replace belts which hold the seat belts in station wagons. Only Ford and Mercury models made in 1981 and through 1984 are affected by this ruling.
Just ahead, a different kind of recall, recalling your high school days. Clinical psychologist Dr. Judy Kuriansky will look at the emotional ups and downs of attending a class reunion and what you can do to cope with the pressures and the pleasures. Some startling new figures today on births to unwed mothers in New York City. The city health department reports that 1 out of every 3 babies in the city were born out of wedlock last year. That is triple the ratio that was just 2 decades ago. The statistics also show that more than 1/4 of the 1983 out-of-wedlock births were to women 19 years old and younger. City and urban planning experts are concerned now about these new figures, and they say that children raised by unwed mothers are more likely to lead lives of poverty and also to have a harder time educating themselves and finding jobs.
In Working It Out this evening, class reunions. Dr. Judy Kuriansky looks at how the fun of seeing old friends can also tell you a lot about yourself.
Here's to good friends.
Terrific reunion.
Yeah. The last time we were here, we made history.
Seeing old buddies, remembering the good old days. Whether in this TV commercial or in real life, there's nothing like a high school reunion to tug at your heartstrings.
The fellow that took me to the senior prom is going to be there. I know he's married now. I'm curious as to what he's doing now.
Lois Barlow from Bloomfield, New Jersey, just last month was getting ready for her 20th reunion from Clifton High. She and her husband, Bruce, were both shy in those days. Though in the same class, they didn't meet till after graduation. Now married 15 years, he's a computer repairman, and she's a housewife.
I like to see if the people that are coming, I want to see who's happy with the way their lives have turned out and what they have done with their lives.
Curiosity is one major motive for wanting to attend a class reunion, as is working through one of the most common woes of adolescence, comparing yourself to others.
One has gone on to become a producer of movies. And at the time, well, he was from my own neck of the woods, too. And you looked up to him. There was a certain, I guess, envy.
The people whom I looked up to, I think, were the athletes, the scholars.
You said the flirts, too.
The flirts, sure. I saw the handsome ones and the pretty girls and the handsome fellas. Really anxious to see if they're all still pretty and handsome, too, after 20 years. I don't know.
Reunions like this one in Chicago answer that proverbial question, what do they look like now? And they can provide comfort in this 1980s world of alienation.
You see these faces, and suddenly they remind you that there was a whole stratum of experience, very important to you, that's been just blocked off or concealed. And you wonder what happened to that portion of your life.
Back to your roots, you can feel more connected to yourself and to others. That is, if you can find them.
I have no idea who it is. They're not coming anyway, so...
Tracking down her 1,000 classmates wasn't easy for Lois Barlow and the rest of her committee in Clifton, but they found about 70% of the alums. Now, since reunions are becoming more and more popular, a new business in Chicago, Class Reunion Incorporated, run by a husband and wife team, will do the dirty detective and planning work for you for $2 a head, as they did for these grads of Schurz High. Though it rained buckets that morning in New Jersey of the Clifton High reunion, Lois Barlow and her husband were pleased that after her efforts, 200 grads showed up. That big-time movie producer Bruce once envied, Lonnie Maxwell, was there. And Dennis Fetko, who now calls himself Dr. Dog and counsels canines in California. And even Paula and Chick, who own the local pizza parlor in Lake Hiawatha, New Jersey, came. Though their jobs and hometowns were very different now, they shared a past and a present desire to feel good about themselves.
We feel a lot more mature than we were 20 years ago, and we sort of accept each other person to person rather than, well, here's an athlete or here's a scholar.
Everyone's life is different, and to some people, I'm sure that if Ronnie Maxwell or some of the other graduates came out, they'd say, oh, you know, nice but very boring. But you have to be happy with your own life.
Dr. Judith Kuriansky, Channel 2 News.
Millionaire philanthropist Percy Ross used his money yesterday to make one family in Georgia very happy. Ross, who writes the syndicated column Thanks a Million, got a letter from the Williams family saying they would not be able to celebrate the eldest member's 110th birthday because of health and financial reasons. Well, Ross footed the bill for the affair. He even showed up in person to wheel in a giant birthday cake with 110 candles. That in honor of James Williams from Valdosta, Georgia.
When we return, Dr. Frank Field updates his forecast. Earl Ubell takes us to a special playground where handicapped children can play right alongside other children.
After 383 books, the queen of romance fiction, Barbara Cartland, is trying something new now. Her latest book, Princess to the Rescue, is a pop-up picture book for kids. Miss Cartland says she dictated this 1,200-word book in less than an hour at Camfield Place. That is her English estate, also the place where Beatrix Potter wrote Peter Rabbit at the turn of the century. Says Barbara Cartland, all my novels are fairy tales. We all want happy endings.
The brightest of playgrounds can seem like the cruelest obstacle course to a disabled youngster who cannot join in when other kids play. A little imagination by the Parks Department, however, has begun to make a big difference, as Health and Science Editor Earl Ubell reports.
A beautiful summer day. Children shrieking with pleasure in a new playground. But this playground in Corona, Queens is a very special place. Able-bodied and disabled children play side by side on equipment that can be used by the lame and the blind.
It's exciting, and other people can come in it, like handicapped people and regular people. There's a sign in the beginning of the park that says, Park for all children. So then it's for all children. Anybody. Even me.
Up and down, Carrie. Come on, that's it. Good girl. Make that bridge move. Patty, did you like that?
The dream of a playground for all children began 10 years ago. The city's planning and parks departments joined experts on the handicap to build a place where any child could play. Costing $3.7 million, it opened in May.
The disabilities fade when they come to the playground. It's not so much the fact that a child's in a wheelchair, but the fact that the child gets around using wheels instead of using his legs.
Here, children can find many different play areas. A monkey bar with platforms, so a child who can't use his legs can use his arms. In this rope cage with soft cushions, children can play a jungle fantasy, either reaching for the sky or rolling on mats. Psychologists from City University want to know if disabled children can be put in the mainstream of children's play. They want to know if this playground works.
We are unable to tell you right now. We're looking at, are there a variety of social opportunities for different children? Are there a variety of play opportunities for different children? And this will have implications for not only this playground, but for playgrounds in New York City and across the country.
It's working out wonderfully. The children really enjoy it. We're getting a lot of positive feedback from the children and the teachers, as well as the parents that come here during the day.
And of course, the children have their own thoughts.
You play with the handicapped people?
Yes.
And what do you find?
That they could be just like other people. I think it's very fun here, and I like it here, and that's all.
I saw a little boy crying as he left the playground, and he was a disabled boy in a wheelchair, and he said, I don't want to go, I want to stay and play. And I think that says it all.
Earl Ubell, Channel 2 News.
Fire destroyed a fun house and a hot dog stand on an amusement pier in Wildwood. It happened early this morning. More than 100 firemen battled this blaze as the flames climbed 100 feet up into the air, but no one, fortunately, was injured. Another of the casualties, though, was a fiberglass water slide, which was melted by the intensity of the heat, that fire in Wildwood. And lightning sparked a series of brush fires this weekend across the northwest part of the country. More than 100,000 acres of wilderness were blackened in Idaho by some 30 fires, which burned out of control till last night. Fires also were reported in Oregon and in Washington. A major brush fire near Richland, Washington, forced a nuclear test facility to be shut down as a precaution. Folks are feeling the effects of this weather all across the country, Frank.
Indeed. We're lucky.
Comparatively?
Well, yes, because out there they've got temperatures in the Dakotas over 100 degrees now, as we speak.
Is this humidity hitting some sort of record, though, with the days we've had?
No, this is a typical August weather.
Days.
I mean, what can you say when you live in New York? You get it, and it's changeable, and you can't really miss the forecast because no matter what you forecast, you will get it. Ranging from clouds and fog and drizzle in the morning to bright sunshine in the afternoon and some pleasant weather. At this moment out in the Hamptons, temperatures are down in the 70s, and here in Midtown, we have readings that are comparatively pleasant. It's 83, which is the highest reading for the day. Our relative humidity, 67% doesn't sound much, but it really is sticky because 67% and 83 degrees makes it very sticky. With a light wind, at the moment, it is easterly, 8 miles an hour, and easterly winds have prevailed for the past couple of days, and they will do so right through the next couple of days. Conditions are sunny. This is our satellite depiction. You can see considerable cloudiness covering all of the eastern third of the country. We were talking about temperatures reaching well over 100 degrees over the center of the nation. The 90s and 100 degrees, all because of a hot, steamy air mass circulating around a huge ridge of high pressure that is sitting out in the Atlantic. That is a dominant weather factor, and it will remain so. Our luck, well, you might call it our luck. Northeasterly to easterly winds, moisture, and that means morning clouds to cool us off, keep temperatures down during the day, and prevent the thermometer from reaching any higher than the 80s, with 83 here in town, and in the 70s off to the east over eastern portions of Long Island and Connecticut, with fog again expected to develop tonight as that moisture continues to seep our way. So our forecast for the metropolitan area for tonight, a repeat, mostly cloudy skies. That cloudiness will begin moving in over the east. You folks out in Islip, Ronkonkoma, Points East will feel it first. It will then drift into the city warm, muggy, foggy, and if you're a boatsman, it means slow down because you won't be able to see where you're going tonight and early tomorrow. A chance of a sprinkle or two, though most of the sprinkles will miss us. You won't have any problem if you're going out this evening here in Midtown. Temperatures remaining in the 70s. And for tomorrow, after a rather dismal and murky start to the day, morning fog to start with, maybe a sprinkle or two in the form of light drizzle. And then as the sun heats up, clouds will part, becoming partly cloudy by afternoon. Again, the possibility of a brief shower. Temperatures tomorrow, they'll reach up again into the low 80s, and along the coast with an onshore flow of air, southeast to easterly winds will keep it somewhat cooler, readings generally in the 70s. Our 5-day forecast, a lot of improvement coming our way. I'll have more on that later on. Back to you, Carol.
Thank you, Frank.
You know, you do that so smoothly, one would almost have the idea you've done this before.
It's been rehearsed. I was in here rehearsing all day today, that same forecast. No, I didn't. It's
Frank, you report the weather.
I don't make it.
Does this affect your mood as much as it affects the rest of us who just have to endure it rather than
right now, I'm in the wrong camp. I'm hyper, being here with you and Carol.
Oh,
but isn't that? And I also got a cut, so back to you guys.
There is still much more ahead this evening. Right now, for a look at the stories we're working on for Channels News at 6, to the newsroom, Ronald Smith.
Thank you, Jim. Why Geraldine Ferraro's husband will not release the tax returns. Workers may pull the plug on the Lilco strike. The high cost of New York City's growing wave of out-of-wedlock births. Plus shopping for the best bargains without ever leaving your home. Tales of these and other stories coming up tonight at 6.
Up next, Dan Dorfman on taxes and politics and how much taxes will probably go up next year, no matter who is in the White House, according to Dorfman. Stay with us. Prices on some of the hottest-selling Chrysler and American motor models are going up next year. The authoritative Ward's Automotive Report says prices on 1985 Renaults and Jeeps will climb an average of 4.1%, while Chrysler plans a 5% increase for its minivans. AMC's basic Encore hatchback will jump $204 to $5,959. Chrysler's basic Caravan and Voyager will go up $478 to a total of $9,147. Today, Mayor Koch declared he's looking to put some of the city's luxury store managers in jail. It's all part of a crackdown on sales tax cheats. Recent studies show that some luxury stores shipping their sales out of state nearly 100% of the time. The mayor says that reveals a deliberate policy of trying to get around the New York tax law. And he says the city is now using computer matchers and undercover agents to try to prove that case in court. Today, Koch announced that 3 as-yet unidentified stores have been referred to the state for possible prosecution of tax laws.
President Reagan is now conceding that he may also raise taxes next year if reelected, but he calls that a last resort at this point. His remarks are the latest volley in a war of election words between him and Walter Mondale. Our business editor, Dan Dorfman, who is not running for president but is entitled to an opinion, has been looking into this question of tax hikes for next year. He has some interesting results for us tonight. Dan?
You know what's really significant about this, Carol? The President of the United States is finally giving us some straight talk on an issue that affects us all.
He's conceding he may have to.
And it's long overdue. I mean, you're not talking to a bunch of buffoons when you talk to the public out there tonight.
True.
Now, you know, it continues to be the hot issue of the campaign, and it's getting hotter. In brief, will we or won't we get a tax hike in '85? Now, Mondale's been saying absolutely yes if he gets in. Reagan has been saying absolutely no if he wins again. Now, though, he's hedging, saying he will consider one, but only if it goes hand in hand with cuts in government spending. In other words, friends, the facts of life are obvious. One way or another, we're in for a tax boost, whoever wins. Call it tax reform, revenue enhancement, or whatever. But it's coming. Now, how does it affect you and me? First, let's look at what might happen if Mondale wins, and ditto under Reagan. Keep in mind, though, that Congress has to okay any tax legislation that either man proposes. Now, some financial experts figure that if Mondale makes it to the White House, we're likely to see three things. One, doing away with income tax indexing. That means your tax rate will no longer be protected from inflation, and that's not good. Two, raising corporate taxes. That could stifle new research and development, which helps create new jobs. And in any event, such an increase would probably be passed along to you and me in the form of higher product prices. And finally, boosting the tax rate on higher incomes, possibly those who earn over $100,000 a year. Now, let's say Reagan wins. Two possibilities are drawing big speculation. One, Reagan will put the tax burden on Congress, meaning he'll let them take the lead in raising taxes while he'll hold his approval to make sure they make sufficient spending cuts to knock down the deficit. Now, two, a possible value-added tax. This is done in Europe, but not in the United States. This is where you tax every added value in the tax production process. For example, if General Motors buys a fender from someone, there's a tax on that. And when we buy that car, there's a hidden tax on that in the form of higher prices. So any way you look at it, you and I, we lose out. But whoever wins, they'll probably try to raise at least $25 billion of new tax revenues. And that'll mean, and here's the bottom line, an average tax bite of about $300 a person. Now, obviously, some people will be harder hit than others. The question of who and how hard depends on who wins. But whoever wins, you can be darn sure we're all going to get sucked for something. Carol?
Just being warned may help. Thank you very much, Dan. Just ahead, dance legend Rudolph Nureyev joins us live here in the studio. He'll be visiting with James Brady. Abbie Hoffman now says that he wonders if people under age 30 can be trusted. The radical yippie leader of the 60s told Newsweek magazine that today's generation of students are cynical and lack commitment to social change. Hoffman says they have designer brains, in his words. He adds, quoting now, "I think the reason a lot of young people are against nuclear war is because it would screw up their careers." Those words from Abbie Hoffman. Well, from that familiar face of the 1960s to the women who would like to be chosen the face of the 80s. That's the name of the international contest held each year by the Ford Modeling Agency. This morning, hundreds of women ages 17 through 21 came to Bloomingdale's, where entry blanks are available for the next 2 weeks for this contest. Also at Bloomingdale's today, past winners Renee Simonson and Carrie Miller. They have been on the covers of Vogue, Glamour, Mademoiselle, and they've also made the big time at Channel 2 News at 5. It's been more than 20 years now since Rudolph Nureyev first danced his way onto the international ballet scene. His name is a famous one now. Since then, the Russian dancer has appeared with many of the best dance companies in the world, doing some of the best dancing in the world. And now he's bringing his talents to Broadway in a show called Nureyev and Friends. And tonight, we welcome him here with James Brady.
Rudy, you're over here.
You just flew in from Athens?
From Athens, yes.
Were they excited about the Olympics over there or not?
Well, they were. I was excited. I had to stay every night till about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning watching them.
You know what I thought when I was watching the gymnastics and the high jump and even the basketball and the high dive? There's a lot of ballet in some athletics.
There's a lot of similar movements.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't, to make movements, it doesn't make a dance, make a phrase. It's something else.
What makes the dance?
It's a phrase, like a sentence, like musical phrase. I mean, a lot of sounds, notes, they don't make a music. You have to make music, you have to create music. You have to make dance.
When you got back here today, you arrived this morning, did you go right to work?
I wanted to, but I didn't.
You didn't? Did you get some rest?
Yes, I went to...
Now, you open Thursday night at the Gershwin Theater, and you're going to dance with, what is it, 4 or 5 different friends, as they
friends,
say.
Yes. All the ballerinas with whom I danced.
Yes.
Like Eva Yevdokimova.
I'm glad you pronounced that, and I didn't have to.
I danced with her in many occasions with Festival Ballet and with Berlin Ballet and Vienna, and touring with her non-stop with Boston. And De Souter, a French dancer.
Yeah.
Also I danced with her in Festival Ballet and in Berlin. Muis, Merry Christmas, Marie-Christine Muis,
yeah.
Who was also from Paris Opera, but she left and she went to dance.
And a couple of American ballerinas.
Yes, and Stephanie Salland, she'll be dancing too.
Is this going to be mostly classical ballet, or are you going to have some of the modern stuff?
Well, it is going to be in a kind of mixed bill. There will be, for example, Morse Pavane.
Yes.
By Jose Limon. There will be Wayfarer.
I don't know that. Is that a contemporary ballet?
It is a duet for 2 men by Béjart, on music by Mahler. There will be Apollo by Balanchine.
By George Balanchine.
Yes. And there will be classical pas de deux, Flower Festival.
Some people say that great ballet masters like Balanchine were too tough on their dancers, especially the women, and they drove them to the brink. Do you feel that they're too tough?
Well, if dancers' life cannot be soft, you know. They can't make it. Dance is not made from soft stuff.
You have to be tough.
You have to be tough. You have to physically and mentally get ready.
Would you run the ballet troupe now, the Paris Opera? You're the artistic director.
Yes.
What does that entail? Do you run all of the dances?
Well, I have to choose, first of all, to compose a program for whole year, for whole season, make casting. I do choreography, I look after the classics, and I rehearse.
And you also dance?
And I also dance. Like last night I danced at Herodicus Atticus in Raimonda.
Last night you danced in Greece?
Yes, I danced for 4 nights in a row.
I think it's amazing that you're still awake. Is New York, this is your 9th season on Broadway, is New York a city that excites you?
Yes, it does.
What is it about New York?
Well, they say it's kind of electricity we have. New York, before everything else, is a dance city. There is so many great choreographers, a lot of very interesting dancers and companies, and public is trained in dance. Yes, they're bitten by this bug.
They're bitten by the ballet bug. I have to ask you this, Rudolph. Before you leave New York, do you plan to go up to Central Park and see the break dancers? Do you know what they are?
Yes. Well, when I was dancing in Spoleto, there was a group of American
break dancers?
Boys. They were doing break.
They were spinning around on their heads?
On the and all that. And
could you do that?
No, I don't think I would qualify for this one.
I think you qualify for everything else. Okay, so it opens Thursday night, Gershwin Theater.
Yes.
Rudolph Nureyev and friends. Okay, it's good to see you again. Thanks very much for coming. Carol?
Thank you both. That wraps up this edition of Channel 2 News at 5. I'm Carol Martin. On tomorrow's broadcast, we'll meet actress Susan George. Also, Dr. Peter Salgo will have a Health Watch report dealing with new therapy for stroke victims. Our consumer expert Joan Hamburg will be along with fashions for the full-sized woman. And we'll meet Peter Gimble. He's the man who will unlock the secret of what's inside the safe of the sunken Andrea Doria. All of that and more tomorrow at 5. And now we continue our 2 hours of news and information as Rollin Smith joins Jim for tonight's top stories at 6. Welcome back, Raul.
Thank you, Carol. Workers may pull the plug on the loco strike. Dave Monzies reports. Tony Gaida on the political cost of Geraldine Ferraro's tax return flip-flop. And we'll tell you why a third of New York City's newborns are part of an alarming trend. And is Bed-Stuy making a comeback? Plus Betsy Ashland finding the best shopping bargains right in your own home. Stay with us.